I always thought that I was gay through high school and things like that, but I never said anything. I wasn't ready. It's one of those things that you have to be ready for and you have to get yourself ready for. And I finally, it ended up with a fight with my mom. I was fighting with her every time. She's like, "Why are you so secretive?" And I was like, "Because I'm gay." And then I started crying, and she was like, "Honey," she goes, "we've always had our suspicions." And I was like, "Oh."
I knew my entire childhood that there was something about who I would be interested in that was a little bit different than some of my friends.
I remember being 3 or 4 and just sort of having a notion that something was different.
It was about during middle school that I noticed there's something different here.
But I didn't know what that meant. I certainly knew that I had some sort of attraction to women, but I had an attraction toward men as well.
I grew up really sheltered. Not only was I homeschooled, but I was also Christian, so I never really interacted with anyone other than that till maybe mid to late high school. So because of that, I really didn't know what being gay was.
When I was a kid in the 80s, the only thing you ever heard about gay or lesbian anything was wrapped up around the AIDS crisis of that time. There was no internet, there were no cell phones, there was no Ellen DeGeneres on television, there were no representations of LGBTQ anything.
There was always a baseline understanding between me and everybody else that it was you're different and you're not a part of this. So girls, I fit in better with them, but even then there was a disconnect. With boys, I was everyone was always telling me that I was too feminine and too sensitive, and boys would always make fun of me, and I didn't understand what the problem was.
I even ended up suppressing it and denying who I was.
And then one day my mom cornered me about it and was asking me questions, and I just sort of said aloud I think I'm attracted to men. And because of that, my mom was really very upset. She kind of ran off crying.
I was dating someone at the time, and I kissed them at a football game. My sister saw me, stepsister, and she told my father. And my father told my grandmother, who I live with and always have. She told me, she's like, if you tell me right now that you're gay, I will move, we will pack up our things, we will kick you out, change our number, and we will leave you, and you will never hear from us again. And that hurt so bad because she was basically my mother. And I almost honestly killed myself that night because that hurt so bad, because I'd struggled with it so long. I'd fought with myself so long, and I can't change that. I've tried. It's not my choice. I wouldn't choose it if I had the choice. So I went back in the closet, so to speak.
As a non-binary person, I am very much in the middle of both genders. So my daily life is definitely affected by gender a lot. Public bathrooms, for instance, are a real not concern for me, but I have to be very aware of the fact that not only am I gay and in a public bathroom, but I'm also someone that identifies in the more feminine aspects of life. But because of that, there are men that are uncomfortable with that. There are men that can lash out. These things happen all the time, unfortunately, and that's one thing that is an important thing for me. Is I want to make it to the point where we don't have issues like that happen. Every person should be able to use a bathroom. That shouldn't be an issue, and yet it still is.
I was working as a waitress in a tiny town in Texas at a small restaurant that I would be all the time asked, people who wanted to have my number, people wanted to know if I was married, things like that. And it got to the point that it was sort of I don't want this to impact tips because I need to make tips, but I also could not come out there as it was really small, so I made up a husband.
I think a lot of people think that you come out and it's just good but you still deal with a lot of discrimination, you still deal with a lot of pain. I mean, my parents are still not quite where I wish they were.
I went to school before Northern. I went to the Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science. I have a degree in mortuary science, and I was working in a funeral home. And 2 days after I came out, they fired me. And I haven't been able to get back in the field since, which is why I'm here.
Coming out is a lifelong process. You have to come out when you move, you have to come out when you change documents, you have to come out when you meet people, right? If they ask you, you know, you have a wife, if you're a woman who has a wife or a partner who identifies as a woman, and somebody asks you about your husband, you have to make a choice. Either you lie and say you're not married, or you lie and say he's fine, or you say, actually, I have a wife or a partner who's female.
This is the 27th anniversary of really the recognition of National Coming Out Day. It is on the anniversary of I believe it was 1987, the National March on Washington of gay and lesbian rights.
Pride events like National Coming Out Day, it's about remembering the fact that we've lost people. Like, we've lost a lot of people from suicide and assault and stuff like that. But it's about remembering your own coming out, but it's also encouraging other people to come out.
You would hear things like, well, that's okay, just don't tell anybody, right? Or it's not important, right? It's not anybody else's business. Well, that's true, right? It's not somebody else's business, but it is if you want to share it.
For some, it's not safe to come out. And it's not safe to come out because of, you know, the fact that we have states where you can be fired based on your sexual orientation or gender identity, or you can be denied housing or public accommodation.
It's good to know that you're not the only one.
It shows people who are like me in situations where they feel like their parents are going to disown them, to see that people who felt like that, it's not always the case. And even if it is the case, that when they do, they'll have a community to help support them and get them through the tough time.
And can offer advice, can offer just a hug.
The most important part about coming out is that's how we change people.
That everybody has a story to share, and that some people have coming out stories that aren't good and that are sad, and that you know, are ones that can really invoke a feeling of compassion or empathy in other people. And it's their story, and it's important to where they are today, and it's important to how they're going to continue to move forward. And so to have a place, or to have a day, or to be able to share that is huge.
When daughters and sons and mothers and fathers and uncles and aunts and friends come out, it changes the lives of the people that love them as well. Hopefully, ultimately, they become more accepting and supportive of LGBTQ issues. So while National Coming Out Day certainly does recognize the process that LGBTQ people have to go through continually to come out, it really is to also recognize the importance of having people who are in a place where they're able to come out and it's safe for them to come out.
My life motto is about like leaving room for other people, because like in historically, like I look back at all of the LGBTQIA people who have spoken out, who have really labored for me to be here today. And it's like in that way they made their room for me. Like they trailblazed so that I could be the way I am today. So for me, it's like it's important to leave room for everybody, because it's like, 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to dress like this. I wouldn't have been able to look like this. I wouldn't have been able to act the way I do. So that's like my life mission, is like, I want to make other people who are walking behind me feel like they can be like, oh, well, that's happening, so maybe I can do that. Hopefully we'll get to a place where we can kind of all be like, this is who I am, and live our truths and not have to be so concerned about it. So yeah, it's like about making room and hoping that in doing that, other people can get up the courage and be like, I want to be who I am today, and make a change.